Hey everybody, my name's Ryan, and here at eTrailer we install, test fit, and review a lot of different parts. That way we could try to answer any questions those of you might have. And that's exactly what we're doing here today on our 2018 Honda Odyssey. We're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the EcoHitch Class 3 2-inch trailer hitch receiver. So a lot of times these Odysseys are used as family vehicles, and so the last thing you want to do is fill up the inside full of cargo or bikes, whatever it may be. It kind of defeats the purpose of being able to transport around a lot of passengers. And the hitch is going to solve that problem. You're going to be able to throw in a bike rack back here, or maybe even a cargo carrier. And not to mention, I know myself when I'm going down the road, I see these Odysseys pulling trailers. They're really versatile and very capable vans. So hitch is also going to allow you to do that too. So whether you need to run to the home improvement store and bring back some material to the house, or maybe even pull your boat down to the lake for the weekend, this is going to be able to get the job done. So one of the big differences that this hitch has compared to most of the other ones is the fact that it's going to be completely hidden for the most part. So it really does look good on the back of the Odyssey. Really the only thing you're going to be able to see is a receiver tube opening here. So really gives off that factory appearance. The only other one available like this is the draw tight, and honestly I think the EcoHitch has a big advantage over that. In my experience, these are just put together a lot nicer. It has a really nice hammer tone powder coat finish, so it should last for a long time and stay looking good. And not to mention the EcoHitch is made from recycled materials, so although it's small, it's nice to be able to do your part and help keep the environment protected and clean. So since this is a Class 3 hitch, it's going to have that 2-inch by 2-inch receiver tube opening. That's a very common size, and a ton of different accessories will work with it. It's going to have a reinforced collar for extra strength, and it's going to have that standard 5/8 pin hole. Now a pin and clip does not come included, but if you need one you can grab it right here at eTrailer. We're going to have plate style safety chain openings, which they're not huge, but they're relatively easy to get to and sit a little bit further back, so you shouldn't have to worry about interfering with that pin and clip. And they should give us enough room to use pretty much any size hook that we might have. So one of the big questions we get asked all the time in regards to putting a hitch on the Odyssey is if you're going to lose that liftgate assist function. And the answer is no. Regardless of what hitch you put on back here, it will still work. Now I will say it may take a little practice to kind of find that sweet spot, but as long as you kick to one side or the other of the hitch, it will work and open as it should. The hitch is also going to give us some pretty impressive weight capacities. As far as the maximum gross tongue weight rating goes, it's going to be 525 pounds, and that's going to be the amount of weight that's pushing down on the hitch. That's a pretty high number, and you should be able to use pretty much any size bike rack or cargo carrier that you'd want to, for example. As far as the maximum gross trailer weight rating goes, it's going to be 3,500 pounds, and that's going to be the amount of weight that's pulling on the hitch. So that is the weight of your trailer plus anything that you might have on it. Now I do always suggest, never a bad idea just to grab your Odyssey's owner's manual. That way you can make sure your Honda can pull out much weight safely. Now I'm going to give you a couple of measurements, and you can use these to help figure out which hitch mounted accessories to get. From the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, that's going to be about 13.5 inches. So if you do plan on doing some towing, chances are pretty good you're going to need to get a ball mount with a rise. From the center of the hitch pin hole to the edge of the rear bumper, that's going to be about 4.5 inches. And you can use that measurement to figure out that if any folding accessories you might have can be stored in that upright position without contacting the bumper. So at the end of the day, a hitch you really can't go wrong with. Not only is it going to look great, but it's also going to be able to handle pretty much anything that you want to throw at it. It's definitely my favorite option as far as the less visible hitches go. They're just really well made and look very nice. Now as far as the installation goes, it's really not too bad. It is time consuming. You are going to have to remove the fascia to get the hitch on, but don't be spooked by that. It's actually not nearly as hard as you think it would. It's a handful of fasteners, and this more or less just pops right off. So really shouldn't give you any issues. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and put that on together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be underneath the back of our Odyssey, and the first thing that we're going to need to remove is this small little plastic piece here just above our tailpipe. It's going to be held in place by 2 push pin style fasteners. So you can take a flathead screwdriver and kind of pry down on the head of that fastener. Sometimes these are a little tricky to get out. They're just kind of packed with dirt and debris and things like that. If that is the case, you can keep working it with your flathead, or sometimes it makes it a little easier to get a trim panel tool like this to pry that out. Once we have that other fastener removed, we can take our small panel and just set it off to the side for now. And then if we move over here to our driver's side, we're going to have an underbody panel that we need to remove. It's going to be held in place along this bottom edge with some push pin type fasteners. In our case, we have 3. It looks like there may be a 4th, however, it is missing, so you may have that one in there, and if that's the case, you need to pull that one out too. But we'll just remove these the same way that we did the other ones, by prying down on the head and pulling that fastener out. Then if we kind of move to the other side of our panel here, we're going to have one 10mm bolt that we need to remove. I want to point out too, it kind of looks like there may be another fastener or 2 that is supposed to be up in here in this area. As I mentioned, ours is missing a couple. I just wanted to point that out. If you remove this bolt and the panel still don't want to drop out, you may have to pull out the fasteners in this area as well. With that being said, we'll get this one out. It looks like our panel is freed up. We should be able to kind of work it out and set it off to the side. Now we can remove some of the fasteners here in the center of our bumper. So we're going to have a total of 6 push pin style fasteners, just like the other ones. So I'll go ahead, grab my flathead, and pull all of those out. And then we're going to have 2 Phillips head screws that we need to pull out as well. This one here and this one here. Now if we move over to our rear wheel wells, we're going to have some fasteners we need to remove. Again, in this case, it looks like one of them may be missing already, but you should have a handful of these Phillips head screws that we can go ahead and pull out. And we're just going to repeat this process on the other side as well. Now if you lift open your rear hatch, we're going to have 2 more fasteners kind of next to our tail light here. They're going to be a hex head. So I'll take a 5mm Allen key, pull those out. Once I have both of these out, I'll do the same thing over on the other side. Now with an extra set of hands, we can remove our fascia. What I went ahead and did is just use some painter's tape here along the seam. That way we don't have to worry about scratching up our paint or anything. And you want to do this on each side. And what you're going to do is kind of grab the fascia and pull it out towards you. Now, it's a little tricky to see right here, but every now and again there's some small clips that it kind of gets hung up on. So you may have to take a plastic tool like this or a flathead screwdriver if you're careful. Just kind of push down on those to release them. So we'll just work our way pretty much all the way up to our tail light. And then from there, it should be pretty easy to pull off. Pull it straight back. You don't want to come out too far, too fast. We may have some electrical that we need to disconnect. In our case, on each side of our vehicle, we're going to have the same type of plug that we need to disconnect. You can push down on the center of it. and get it removed. You want to be careful when you're doing this. Take your time. Sometimes these plugs can get real dirty and make it difficult to pull them out. But once we have those released, we can take our fascia and set it off to the side somewhere safe. Now we can lower our exhaust down a little bit to give us some more room to work. I do suggest taking a strap though and just running it from side to side. That way it'll have a little bit of support and we can kind of control how fast and far we let it down. If you don't have one of these straps laying around the house, you can always pick one up right here at eTrailer. So to lower our exhaust, we come right here. We're going to have a rubber isolator hanger. Definitely want to spray it down with some type of lubricant. I'm using soapy water. That's going to help it come off easier. And you're going to take a pry bar or a big screwdriver or something like that and just pry that rubber portion off of the metal hanger. So now let's go ahead, go over our attachment points and get our hardware ready. And I want to mention from this point on, anything we do to this side of our vehicle, we're also going to do to the other side because it'll be set up the same way. So we're going to have a total of 3 attachment points in each frame rail. We're going to be using this hole and these 2 weld nuts. Let's focus on this one first. What we're going to do is take a pull wire and reverse fish wire our hardware into place. So we're going to have a hex bolt. You're going to want to take one of these locking star washers, put that over the hex bolt, and then one of these spacer blocks will go over the bolt. Then we can thread all of that onto our pull wire. So we'll get that going on there. What I like to do is kind of separate the spacer block a little bit. We'll get our hardware pushed inside the frame rail, and we can drop our bolt back down like so. So once that's in there, we can look at our other 2 attachment points. You can spray these down with some penetrating oil if you want. Come back with a tube brush and just clean those threads out. That way if any dirt or debris is in there, it will be removed and our bolt will easily be able to thread in. And what we're going to do, once our hitch is up there, we're going to take this hex bolt, a split lock washer, one of these smaller washers will go on next, followed by one of these larger ones. So when our hitch is in place, these will simply just thread right into those factory weld nuts. So now with an extra set of hands, we can raise our hitch into position. On the passenger side, you're going to want to go over the tailpipe. Don't forget to feed your pull wire through the corresponding hole in the hitch. Once you have it into position, you should be able to raise it up. Make sure that bolt drops through. Then we can take our hardware, and we want to get at least one started hand tight. That way the hitch will support itself while we work on the rest of it. So what I like to do is just loosely install all of the hardware. That way if you need to kind of reposition your hitch to one side or the other, it's easier to kind of get it all lined up. What we're going to do to secure this bolt here is if we remove our fish wire, I'm going to take a flat washer and slide it up and kind of apply a little bit of side pressure. That'll keep that bolt from moving around. Then we're just going to take a hex nut and get that started. Once all of our hardware is in place and hand tight, we can come back with a 19mm socket and snug it all down. Now we want to come back with a torque wrench and tighten down all of our hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. Now that our hitch is completely torqued down, we can re-secure our exhaust. So you just spray it down again. And then this time it's easier just to kind of use your hands to re-secure it. With the exhaust supporting itself, you can go ahead and remove our strap. So now what we need to do is trim out our fascia. There's some measurements and a diagram and the instructions that you can follow. So I went ahead and marked that with a pencil just so I can cut it out. Make sure you don't have anything behind your bumper. You don't want to cut into any wires or anything. With that being said, I'm just going to use a pair of 10 snips. I think a regular pair of snips or maybe even a sharp utility knife may cut this out as well. It is somewhat thick plastic. Or if you wanted to, you could always use a Dremel tool or something like that. I did find that the snips kind of make the cuts a little bit cleaner and comes out with a little bit better of a finished product at the end, but it's entirely up to you. With this cut, and then once we get this main part cut out, we're going to have to come back and down towards the bottom, take just a little bit more material out. That way our fascia will clear our hitch and we'll be able to reinstall it. Now that we have our bumper trimmed out, with an extra set of hands, we'll go ahead and reinstall it. We'll just kind of carefully work it back into position. Don't forget to plug in any electrical that you may have disconnected. And once we get it lined up, we can just push it back into place more or less. With our bumper now back in place, we can simply just re-secure it the opposite way that we removed it. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the EcoHitch Class 3 2-inch trailer hitch receiver on our 2018 Honda Odyssey.